Yorgos Lanthimos is one of the strangest commercially successful directors we have working in cinema right now. His films aren't always perfect, but I am a very big fan of the unique material he is bringing to the screen. Each release gets weirder, and as he progresses, so does his visual style and voice. But which Yorgos film is the best? My guess is the answer will vary greatly depending on who you ask and what kind of flavor of Yorgos chaos you prefer. In today's video, I'm going to rank all 9 of Yorgos Lanthimos' films, give you the reasons why, because some of these might be a little bit controversial. Please do have your say below. It is really fun to see how our opinions differ, but just remember, this is my own personal list, so please don't be mean in the comments. The ranking list that I have put together today covers Yorgos Lanthimos' films from 2005's Kinetta all the way to the 2025 release Bugonia. I am not including any of his short films or commercials, and I'm also not including The Best Friend, his film that he co-directed, because it was very difficult to find. I found a version of it online, but it had no subtitles, so I couldn't watch it. Very hard to track down. And since it's been co-directed, it's not wholly his vision. So I am leaving that off and starting from Kinetta. Please let me know if you have seen My Best Friend and if it's worth me tracking down and if it differs from Yorgos's other films. Out of courtesy, I want to say that I will be discussing these films as I go through them a little bit, so there might be some minor spoilers. Coming in at number 9 is the 2005 film Kinetta. Kinetta was interesting to watch from the point of view of seeing Yorgos fumble through bringing something together that isn't fully evolved yet and comparing that to the rest of his accomplishments. It's always fascinating to see where an artist got their start. Kinetta has barely any dialogue and very, very shaky camera work. There's not a whole lot of story going on here. There's a lot left for you to kind of come up with for yourself. It feels very offhand and like there wasn't a storyboard. It was just Yorgos with some friends in Greece just trying things out. Kinetta feels very much like a first film, and I suppose this is his first solo film, so it's fitting. It's the least riveting of all his films, and it was quite a slog to get through, if I'm honest. But I did enjoy seeing the little morsels of stylistic trademarks and motifs that he would later put to screen in a much more compelling way. Something I noticed while watching Kinetta towards the end in particular is that Yorgos has a fascination with the injured and the ill, leading us to surmise that he is always exploring the compromised individuals in society, those whose hands are tied or are stuck, sick, or challenged in some way. I think this is seen explored later on in his filmography, with control always popping up as a plot point or in the characters. Obviously, this is something that I have noticed in his films, but it's funny that it took me to kind of watch Kinetta, where there was so little going on, to realize it. And I am not angry that I watched it, despite it being quite a slog to get through. If you are a film fanatic or a diehard Yorgos lover, then definitely seek out Kinetta, but it's at the bottom of the list because when you compare it to all of his other films, it is by far, the least impressive, the least engaging. Coming in at number 8 is the 2011 release Alps. This is another Greek language release for Yorgos, and we see some actors here that cross over in Dogtooth. I was really surprised to learn that Alps actually came after Dogtooth. I assumed that this was before, especially viewing it, because it does seem like a lesser film to Dogtooth. The ideas and concepts in Alps are really interesting, but the movie itself, maybe not so much. A nurse, a paramedic, a gymnast, and her coach offer a service for hire wherein they stand in for dead people by appointment, hired by relatives, friends, or colleagues of the deceased to assist with the grieving process. Never has a logline sounded so very Yorgos. I have been interested to see this film for a very long time and finally got the chance to watch it recently. And the logline to me it really stuck out. I thought, what a perfect plot line for Yorgos to tackle. And I think if he did that now, it would be done a lot better, because I don't know if I was missing something, but I don't know, Alps just didn't grab me. It didn't grab me visually. It didn't shock me or have me in awe or have any of that sort of Yorgos magic to it. Something about it felt too sparse, too minimalistic, and just like there was too much left out. I needed a little bit more here, but let me know below if you've seen it and I am missing something. Maybe this is one that needs to be re-watched or come at from a different perspective. I don't think that this is because of budget constraints or anything like that. Like I said, some of these actors were in Dogtooth and they were brilliant, and this looks very low budget, the same as Kinetta and Dogtooth were. So it's very evident that Yorgos can create a lot with very little. So I'm not too sure. I can't put my finger on what it was with Alps, but I just felt very disconnected to the story, and it didn't just quite go there with such an intriguing premise, like standing in for dead people and kind of impersonating them. I mean, it's so wild and so quirky and so Yorgos. So I wish he'd have done more here with that. Coming in at number 7 is Kinds of Kindness, released in 2024. This one was quite polarizing, and I can already feel some of you hitting the keyboard being like, how could this be so low on your ranking list? Just hear me out for a second. Kinds of Kindness looks fantastic. It is shot so well, just as well as his other films, maybe even better. The colors here are so vivid and saturated. I absolutely loved the costumes of each character too. And I'm here for the weirdo dance Stone does and all of the characters. The finger cutting off scene was awesome, and I enjoyed that as much as any sicko does, and all of the other typically sadistic Yorgos events that unfurl throughout this mammoth, almost 3-hour triptych of psycho people doing unhinged things. All of what I just said would normally be right up my alley in a film. But unfortunately, I felt very disappointed by Kinds of Kindness in the aftermath of, driving quite a long way to the city to see it because I was very excited. It just felt like it didn't come together. I felt robbed of any real actual film here, and instead was left with an itch that hadn't been fully scratched because all I got was a series of chaotic, edgy events that didn't culminate or come together in a way that felt like anything to me. I have read lots of reviews online, and even some of you who commented with analysis of that film on my recent Bugonia video. And they were very insightful. They were very interesting. But I think with films, we need to be honest with ourselves, and it comes down to what you got from it. And whilst there were so many awesome parts of Kinds of Kindness, and I didn't hate it, I really didn't love it. Personal opinion here, but I think this one was overly indulgent and more something that Yorgos wanted to make, like a passion project, or him satisfying every artistic whim, and then in the process, just losing some of his viewers. Honestly, all the power to him though. He can do that because normally he gives us a very tight, still narratively, driven and engaging story with amazing visuals. So if this is something that he wanted to do and bring together, then go for it. Not that he needs my permission, of course. I think the other thing, and the reason that Kinds of Kindness is sitting at 7 on my list, is the deadpan dialogue and like the stiff Yorgos bodies, movements, all of those trademarks were very apparent in Kinds of Kindness. I normally like them. I think in this it started to grate on me a little bit, and I realized that that's like complaining about, the action in a John Wick movie or whatever. Like obviously he's going to do those things. That's the kind of director that he is, so it feels futile to complain about it. But with other parts missing for me that I couldn't grasp onto, those parts just, like I said, seemed irritating and very abrasive. And I mean, maybe that's how I was supposed to feel. I don't know. But it just didn't work for me, guys. Coming in at number 6 is Killing of a Sacred Deer. The reason this is ranking at number 6 on my list is purely for personal reasons. It's got nothing to do with the actual film itself. I think this is some of his best work and is really brilliant. I think it's a brilliant film, but I found it the most disturbing by far in his filmography. I think because of it being more steeped in reality, these settings are all recognizable to us. We've got the family unit, like the hospital and the children's health declining. It all felt too real, and that just really destroyed me to watch. I struggled to get through this one. It really, really affected me, really disturbed me on a level that I wasn't willing to go there with. And I think that it blocked me being able to access a lot of the really great things about this film, the allegories and the comments on guilt and power and all of those things that he normally poses so well in his films. But for me, there was just such a block as a parent, because seeing these children just decline and getting towards the end with that end scene, I just really struggled with that. Killing of a Sacred Deer was so cruel that I almost resented its existence. I do want to say though that the way it was shot was absolutely incredible. These very Kubrickian angles and choices I absolutely loved. And I also thought that the performances were great from the children. I thought Nicole Kidman was great. I'd love to see her in more of his films. I think she's very well suited to this cold, stiff kind of character. Barry Keoghan was also one of the greatest villains I think ever put to screen. He really made my skin crawl. And like I said, there's so much I love about this, but on a personal ranking list in terms of like what I would go back and watch, what I enjoyed, Killing of a Sacred Deer is not it. Coming in at number 5, we have The Lobster. The Lobster felt like the first of Lanthimos' films that a wider audience could enjoy. It definitely gets dark and cruel towards the end, but I think the love story, albeit it's a very unconventional one, was the thing that massaged this through to the mainstream. In a dystopian near future, single people, according to the laws of the city, are taken to the hotel, where they are obliged to find a romantic partner in 45 days or are transformed into animals and sent off into the woods. The comical nature to the plot, in where if you don't find love, you turn into an animal, taps at that societal fear of being alone and outcasted if one does not find love and reproduce. The Lobster tackles an inherent and base level fear and desire in a unique, incredibly quirky, but still very disturbing way. And I think that's why it was successful. The fact that this was a very dystopian type film, it's very outlandish to think that something like this is ever going to really occur, made it easier for me to watch than something like The Killing of a Sacred Deer, even though we do have some pretty brutal scenes. I also really love Rachel Weisz and her deep voice and half-masked eyes, and I think she suits the Yorgos deadpan character really well. So it worked for me here, and it didn't feel monotonous and grating like it did in Kinds of Kindness. Overall, I really liked The Lobster. I've watched it a few times. I always enjoy it, but for some reason, it's just not my favorite. Speaking of the favorite, coming in at number 4 is the 2018 period piece, The Favorite. I feel like The Favorite maybe doesn't get as much love from viewers as his other films, and I'm not sure if that's because it is a period piece. I saw this one at the cinemas and remember really enjoying it, and rewatching it for this video, I realized that I liked it even more than I thought. I think what works beautifully here is the cold and distant nature of the upper-class 18th century British folk that litter this movie, and how that is actually a match made in heaven for the way Yorgos crafts and directs his characters. It just feels right. These two things go together. The performances here are some of my favorite as well, although I feel like I keep saying that because I feel like the performances are always good in Yorgos movies. They're never really missing the mark, but this one feels particularly special because it is the first time we see Miss Emma Stone in a Yorgos project. And going back and watching it and seeing how brilliant she was, I remember being struck by it when I first saw The Favorite. It felt just special, and knowing that they've gone on to do so many things together and just seeing her range expand, I just felt very, very proud of her. Obviously, the costume is incredible, and rewatching this, I could really see the groundwork be laid for Poor Things with these almost fisheye, distorted wide angles that he occasionally uses, which takes this period piece to an abstract place visually, but narratively it all kind of develops in a more straight up and down way. We can easily follow the breadcrumbs of the narrative and the motivations of the character in a way that just feels a little bit more digestible than other films like Kinds of Kindness, and maybe that makes me a bit of a normie, but sometimes I just don't want to try so hard, especially with Yorgos, where there's a lot of other things going on. This is definitely one of his more conventional films, I would say, but I mean conventional by Yorgos's terms. I loved how wickedly cruel The Favorite was, and it felt fitting for royalty and this status game that they are playing. I wish every period drama was shot by Yorgos because this is a genre that worked really well for him. I also found this one very comical in how it took the piss out of government and royalty and how detached wealthy people are. I was, laughing out loud a lot in this, which I also appreciated. This was juxtaposed like he normally does with great moments of sadness, especially with the Queen, when you kind of learn about her losses and the real meaning behind the rabbits as well. So I just found it a really interesting exploration into those three characters, into survival, I suppose, status, and the power dynamics between people, and how kind of pathetic, I suppose, we are as human beings, no matter if it's in 2025 or in the 18th century. Okay, number 3, Poor Things. I'm not going to lie, guys. This started to get really, really hard from now on. Poor Things is possibly one of the most insane movies of all time. I mean, its scope, the costumes, the story, the fact that this was given a wide release. I mean, it's just such an obscure, weird, wild film. I felt extremely overwhelmed in the cinema trying to soak up every part of the story and the visuals. Everything about it felt very, very unconventional. It felt very Yorgos, but it felt like, Yorgos on like speed. It's very rare that you see something nowadays and you walk away going, you know what? I've never seen anything like that before. I just don't think that really happens. We don't have moments like that anymore with kind of anything in art. And with Poor Things, I can safely say I walked out of that like, wow, that was so eccentric, but it didn't feel forced or contrived. It felt honest and it was beautiful. And, it was entertaining still, but it was so arty and so weird and just unlike anything I've ever seen before. There was also so much to unpack with Poor Things in terms of the comments on society and how they view women and gender and sexuality and all of those kinds of things. But it was doing it not in a Netflix boring box ticking way. It was doing it in an actually thought-provoking way that would lead to conversations. All of what I'm saying is probably leading you to think, why isn't this number 1? Because you are praising Poor Things so much. And I honestly can't fault it. It was great. I mean, great doesn't even do it justice. But for me, it was just too much. And I get that that's kind of the point. And I was happy to see Yorgos do something that was so grand in scope and get the budget to do all of these things and make all these costumes. Like, you go for it, Yorgos. It's great. But for me personally, on this ranking list, it sits at 3 because it was too much and it was a little bit whimsical. And that's just not really my vibe. It left me mourning for something like Dogtooth, something more stripped back and simple, because I love seeing him do more with less. In The Favourite, it felt right because this is a period piece, so obviously you are going to get that costume with it, and that felt secondary to the characters. Whereas in Poor Things, it was just like, it was such an onslaught. It was so much to process in every single aspect. So it was very maximalist, and I'm not sure that was what I want from Yorgos. Coming in at number 2 is Bugonia. It might seem silly to put a film so recently released so high on a ranking list, but I am very confident with this one, guys. I absolutely loved Bugonia. If you want a full review, I did release one recently. There are spoilers in that. It's like a deep dive chat about it. I also refer to them as brothers, and they are not brothers, they are cousins. Sorry, it's really hard to get everything right all the time. I was nervous for Bugonia because I thought it was going to go the way of Kinds of Kindness, and I was pleasantly surprised. I thought Jesse Plemons was fantastic here. Obviously, Emma Stone is great, but I feel like it's just a bit redundant to say that she's great, because if she's in a Yorgos project, she's obviously going to be amazing. And Jesse Plemons really nailed the conspiracy theorist character and vibe. I loved the way this looked. I loved pretty much absolutely everything about it. I really couldn't fault Bugonia. It's sitting high on my list because for me personally, it really captured how I'm feeling about the world right now and how paranoid I am and worried I am about, what is going on and what does it all mean and how is it going to end? And I really resonated with how he put that to screen, especially in those static vignettes at the end. Those were what just threw me over the edge, the same way the ending of Anora threw me over the edge. It's like, yes, I was in, and now I've just jumped right in. I'm all in for this movie. I was glued to the screen the entire time as well, and I didn't wish for any inclusion. I didn't wish for any character to have more screen time. I wasn't hoping for an alternate ending. I had no notes. Bugonia hit the spot for me in every single way, and the only reason that it is not number 1 on my list is because I am way too nostalgic for the number 1 film on this list, Dogtooth. I went back and forth on this one a lot, guys, because it kind of does feel crazy to put this as number one considering all of the other films that we've seen from him since. And I think that a lot of it comes down to reasons of nostalgia and sentimentality. This was the first Yorgos film I ever saw. It was the first Greek language film I ever saw too, and it just totally blew my mind. I'm sure a lot of you can resonate and relate to having that kind of film experience where you see something and it just blows your whole entire world open cinematically. You're like, oh, okay, movies like this can exist. That's so cool. And then it sets you off on this path. And I feel, like anyone who probably saw Dogtooth back in the day, it's like we've been with Yorgos for a long time now. So it sort of has first album vibes for me, and that's why it's number one on the list. I hadn't seen this kind of stilted, awkward, deadpan acting before, and then the weird sex scenes and just like the shocking nature of it, but the beauty in just the natural light and the simplicity of the cinematography. I just thought it was incredible, and it stuck with me so much, the memory of seeing it. So that is partly why I am choosing it, but I do really think that it nailed every aspect of what Yorgos wants to do in a film, and those like trademark things that we see from him now. We're definitely seeing those in Dogtooth, and I just commend him so much for being able to do that and pull that off with what looks to me like would have been a very low budget. I 100% agree that a lot of other Yorgos films are probably arguably better films. They're better executed or are technically better and more grand. The performances are better, whatever it is, for sure. I can agree with you there. But just for me personally, it has to be Dogtooth at number one because this was my first introduction to Lanthimos as a director, and I've been so excited to see every release from him since. It also sits at number one because Dogtooth does not have a big star in it. There's no Nicole Kidman, there's no Emma Stone, there's no one attaching to this, and there's nothing to lean on. There's no big Hollywood budget. There's no grand costume or crazy lens or camera or anything like that. He's working with so little here in Greece with these Greek actors on probably a very small budget. And I'm a big fan of constraint in cinema and in art, and it's really cool to see him go so big, but I just think that hats off to him for being able to pull off his vision so well with Dogtooth. That's my list. This is my first ranking video because this is quite a new channel, so if you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up. Let me know below. Feel free to rank yours. As I said, I'm very excited to chat about this in the comments. If you have anything to add about the films or you want to rearrange the ranking, please do so. It's super fun to hear other people's perspectives. Movies are a great way for everyone to like come together and talk. We don't need to get personal about it. Like I said, I do have a review of Bugonia if you've seen it and you are ready for a spoiler review, and I have a bunch of other listicles as well. Let me know what other ranked videos you would like to see me do on this channel. And thank you so much for watching, guys. I really appreciate it. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one.